Everybody, and welcome to the Any Key. Oh my goodness! Happy Thanksgiving to the rest of us Canadians.
Happy Turkey Day.
Happy Turkey Day! Woo! See, I was expecting you not to say anything, so I was gonna just do it by myself.
Gobble gobble.
Gobble gobble. I am your host Drekkonis, and I'm joined here with Strygwyr D. I always call
Just
you
Strygwyr.
just
Just Strygwyr.
Strygwyr. No, I want to use
Just
the
Strygwyr.
D.
We leave out the D. It's a silent D.
It's a here on the Any Key, the show where we talk about esports culture. Tamir, how are you today?
I'm a little bit drained, but I'm ready to talk esports. Always ready to talk esports.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. I love that gusto. We today, guys, we have a special episode because Bear's not here. Rip Bear. He's currently doing a midterm, and today I decided we'll just focus on a episode where we talk about the amateur scene. You have to forgive me right away that this might be a shorter episode. And then that might be a shorter episode, but I think we're gonna get some good content out of it. So before we get into it, Tamir, how was your turkey day?
Oh god, so much turkey. Still suffering turkey. Honestly, I didn't celebrate Thanksgiving for the longest time until I moved to Canada not too long ago, and it's a different experience. I'll say that much. It's a lot of turkey. It's a lot of sweet potatoes. It's a lot of cranberries. You never really get used to it, I don't think. But it was good. Lots of family, lots of friends, surrounded by good people, and I guess that's really what counts. So, not complaining.
Well, good, excellent. I don't know. I only celebrate Turkey Day when I'm in a relationship, so that's when it happens.
You could say the same about me, I suppose.
But it was a really good time. I always get into a food coma for a bit and
Yeah.
don't move around and
Napping.
I can never. I always underestimate the power of turkey when it comes to taking a nap. It just
that tryptophan.
it's weird. Like I ate it. I was like, that was good. I feel great, and then that's it. Just fall over and it's done.
Was
right?
it dry though? Be honest now. Nobody's listening. Was it?
No, it was
It was, wasn't it? It
You know
was.
what? It was kind of like prepackaged turkey. I think maybe like it was
Oh, okay. It was like
turkey
President's
breast.
Choice turkey.
I cannot confirm nor deny, but
I bet it was.
the turkey may or may not have been real. So getting into the esports portion of this show, um, you know what? It's been actually fairly slow on terms of actual esports news in general, but ESChamp news. So critical update. If you missed it last week, but this week we are on iTunes and on SoundCloud for those of you who like to catch this show on its regular time on those mediums. You don't want to, you can't actually watch the live stream. You instead want to hear it in your car or on your jog to work or whatever it is that you do.
In the shower.
In the shower, then you can now get it on iTunes and SoundCloud. So that's super exciting on our end.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump right into it.
Sure.
So we're gonna focus a little bit on the amateur scene, and I had this question. Someone asked me a question on Quora. For those of you who don't know, Quora is just like a network of where people just ask random questions, and someone asked me a question, like they specifically asked me to answer it, and the question
like Dora,
goes,
but for questions, right?
Exactly, just like Dora the Explorer, but for questions. They asked, how do I break out into the amateur scene, or how do I, from the amateur scene, progress? And I wanted to get your opinion, Tamir, on some of the opportunities and all sorts of esports that people can do to sort of progress their amateur career and the different options, right?
Well, first of all, I'd say if this is something that you were serious about, as with anything that you're serious about, research is key. There's a lot of avenues out there. There's no one tried and tested method that you could say, yeah, just play, Collegiate Star League or something like that, and then you're got a surefire way into it if you're good. every pro out there has had a different experience, and everybody who's made it out of the amateur scene into the pro scene has gotten there by finding their own way there. And so, what I would highly recommend is that you just take a look at what other people have done, how they've risen to fame, if you will, and it maybe to a small extent try and mimic that, but forge your own way there. The biggest thing about
How would you think like let's in terms of ideas, what would you think are some key or common ways that you think you see players get
right
discovered or from?
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like if there's a couple of avenues that are more common than others that are you see repeatedly, and those are my top one would be in-house leagues. I see pretty much every pro out there
Oh
at
yeah,
some point
in-house
in their
leagues.
career has said, it all started when I was playing this in-house league, right? And somebody at the top of the leaders just they noticed me, right? They I played with them. They liked me. They said I was good. They wanted me back in their next game. Usually from there, they get you to stand in for them when they're playing one of their official matches or something like that. That's how a lot of players that are gone from nothing to winning in the international. Aoi, for example, in-house leagues, Arteezy in-house leagues. Um,
What was those? What was that in-house league that you mentioned to me again was called? It's obviously gone now, but it
IXDL.
yes.
That's the IXDL. They've got a couple of leagues actually as part of
Oh,
that
is it still
network.
going?
Yep. I mean, not the same way it was. Ranked matchmaking kind of took over, but for Dota specifically, IXDL was pretty big, and I can recall playing with players like Arteezy or Sleesel, any one of these North American pros today, at some point in their career, spent at least a little bit of time on IXDL, whether it was invite or open. Um, we've all been there at some point. So there's some common trends that you can pick up on that anybody who's made it to being at least an amateur, if not a pro, has spent a good amount of time in amateur leagues, and that's one thing that I would highly recommend if you're looking to either get noticed, get picked up, or if you're just looking to improve to a point where you're eligible for that kind of team or team status or being noticed. Play some in-house leagues. Not they exist for every game. I'd say like for Dota, you've other than IXDL and ranked matchmaking, which is a kind of semi in-house league. You've got Reddit League, and there's a whole bunch of them.
I,
You don't have to look far.
and I think each game has a different method. I would believe of
Yeah,
going up and down the ranks. For example, I would say for games like StarCraft, a lot of lands, attending lands are
well,
pretty crucial.
that's a very different avenue for developing your reputation and increasing your um, how much you get noticed or
So there's a lot of
increasing
sort
your
of
exposure.
amateur lands. Like winning amateur
Yeah,
lands, I think are one of these things that you're like is one of those things that is the first step in my opinion. Like
well,
winning an online tournament is one thing, but I always think that winning an amateur LAN, like a 5K or a 6K LAN, or which is obviously
that's
depending on the game.
I wouldn't say that that's like the first step. I'd say that comes after you play some in-house leagues, and so that's what I'm trying to say. Like if somebody's trying to develop and break into this kind of scene,
Mm.
you want to be playing in-house leagues long before you're trying to win lands.
Then
That's
it starts off at ladder first, wouldn't you? Then you start off with your basic ladder, and then you
well,
move on to a league.
yeah. I'm kind of assuming that anybody that's asking this question has played ladder, and they're asking like,
Yeah.
how do I,
What's next?
I've hit my cap on the ladder currently. I need to get better to improve. Like, if you're a 4K Dota player and you're like, damn, how do I get out of this 4K bracket? Like, how do I get better? You got to play with people that are better. That's what it is. You got to play with people that are gonna force you to improve, um, and bring out the best in you. And you got to play with people that are better than you. And the best way to do that isn't to just queue up for ranked matchmaking where everybody that you're playing with is, the average of your MMR. It's you want to play with people that are better. Best place to do that if you don't have friends, family, paid coach, whatever. Play some in-house leagues. You're gonna find people that are better than you. Aside from that, a good example that you said, which would be my second most important avenue for improving and getting noticed, is participate in either local or online events. Just participate in as many events as you can. I mean, some of them are going to come with a hefty registration cost. I'm not saying you need to spend $75 on every land to improve, but a lot of them are free. Reddit League is free, and you can participate, win money. There's lots of stuff going on all the time that you can participate in on an amateur level. You just got to go looking for it, and you're going to play against people that are a lot better than you. Solo queues are even a great way. Like we were casting the solo queue the other month, and there was like 2K MMRs playing with 7Ks. I mean, if you're not gonna get better doing that, then you're just not gonna get better. Like,
I think that also, and this also comes to certain games, so solo games versus team games. A solo game, you may have the opportunity where going from to a LAN is just your main worry. When it comes to a team game, the next step is to put together your squad and choosing the type of people who would be on your squad.
well, that's why I actually offer up suggestions like Reddit League, where they match you up with a team, for example, or solo queues, where you don't have to come in with a squad. You just join in and you're playing with people that are better than you, um, by virtue of the way the tournament is
What
structured.
if you're a CS:GO amateur and or Dota 2 amateur, and you want to get a couple of guys together, and you're like, listen, let's or girls, and you're like, listen, let's go all the way. Uh, what do you think sort of the step is for that?
Well, first of all, I think really for that it's be realistic. Your first team is not going all the way. I'm sorry to tell you. I'll break your heart right now. The first group of
You're
five
such a
people
realist.
the first group of 5 people that you get together is not gonna make it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I mean, if anything, it means the opposite. It means that you should do that. You should have that experience now. You should get it and going immediately, so that you've got that behind you. You can say I've been a part of at least one team before. You have that experience under your belt. And the best way is just go to your communities. Hit up your communities. They don't all have to be from your neighborhood. They don't have to live in your residence at university. They don't have to live in your apartment complex. You don't need people that are close that you can travel with and hang out with. You even if they're international. Um, just getting that experience of playing on a coordinated team that improves together is invaluable.
I think at some point we'll have to get a guest who is a team manager or a team player and ask them the difficulties. I imagine it must be so irritating, not irritating, but difficult to have to get like schedules aligned and scrimming and all the things that go into putting together an up and coming team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that's one of those steps that, like, if you're ever on a team and you're invited into like scrim groups and such, you're improving. You're getting better. Um, that's one of the next steps. I mean, if you're already there, good for you. There's still a long way to go, but like that's a really good place. Is if your team is scrimming and you're getting regular matches against decent opponents, then you're definitely on the right track. So that is actually really important.
I
Um,
think that, and on the note of scrimming, I think the next step would be when teams you play against certain teams in your either in-house leagues or into tournaments. I would say get their contacts and then start scrimming with them on a regular, right?
Yeah, that well, generating those opportunities is kind of what it's all about, right? Creating the space for yourself in those areas is what pretty much everything that we're talking about right now. Whether it's playing in an in-house league or making space for yourself in a LAN, just make space for yourself amongst people that are better than you, and make space for yourself in places where you're gonna get noticed, by people that are where you want to be, and eventually, I hope, for your sake, that
So, like you
that
better hope that no one in the audience is like a nihilist where they're like, "Oh, it's all for nothing."
well, I'm just saying, like, you should see improvements, and if you're not, then it's time to evaluate, because competitive gaming is obviously not for everybody. It's really easy to underestimate how difficult it is to improve and to get to those levels. But I mean, in Dota, if you're 5K, you're top 1,000 North America, and if, just by getting to 5K MMR, it seems like 90% of the marathon is getting to 5K, but once you get there, you've got another 90% to go.
And I think that's with all of the games. For example, in StarCraft, I hear a lot of people that when they're like just getting to Grandmasters, is that the first half they like the
Yeah,
grind, and then just like once you're in Grandmasters, that's when the actual game begins.
even though you're a grandmaster, you're better than like 98% of the player base. You're still nothing, right? Like it's like
So it's so true. And
mastery is not linear, is all we're trying to say. Like once you get to that point, like the rate of improvement, like tanks, but at the same time, like the difference in each unit of improvement, whatever you want to quantify it as, is enormous. Like it's absolutely absurd, the difference between like a 5K and a 7K player, even though on the leaderboards you're looking at the difference of between like number 700 and number 200. That's only 500 people difference, but it's an enormous amount of skill that's involved in between those numbers. Um, so
And it reminds me of something that I was, because I also take karate, and I thought that once you get to black belt, that was the moment where you're like, oh, it begins. That's it. This is
no,
I've made it, and it's like, nope.
no,
This is
no,
this
you're
is when this is where you just start. This is your
yeah,
starting point, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, all that work.
yeah, yeah. It's and then I mean, how many levels of black belt are there in karate?
Oh my goodness! I guess it depends on your school, but from what I can tell is like
Well, I mean, in your
seven. Like you have to put like I think seventh dan. Like I don't
yeah,
like you put like bars on your black belt to show
yeah.
the next level on it, and
That's what I mean. In your
you
specific
know I
school,
believe
do
in
you know
my
how many?
specific school, I believe there is 7 levels. If I was to
Right.
like take a stab in the dark,
Yeah, and like 7 level of black, but like I said, mastery is uh it's difficult. Like you've I think it's latest I heard it was like 10,000 hours of like
10,000
in
hours. Yes.
to master, any kind of skill, and there's at least multiple skills in every one of these games that we're talking about. CS:GO,
Well,
Dota,
yeah.
StarCraft, like there's a like yeah, even pro players at the top of the game winning internationals are still learning every day. And that's, I mean, sure, by and large part because the game is changing and evolving, but it's also just because there's like the breadth of knowledge is almost infinite in any one of these games. You're constantly innovating and improving, so that's really what you need to focus on is just getting better. Just get better at whatever game you're trying to get noticed in, and then place yourself in opportunistic scenarios, whether that's at a LAN, in an in-house league, um, scrimming, all those kind of try and get yourself into a position where you can stand in for teams that you admire, or teams that you'd like to be a part of. And that's how a lot of players did it. Like Admiral Bulldog, on Alliance, they won TI3. He started out as a stand-in for Navi, right? He played in an in-house league with Dendi, and Dendi was like, "Hey, you're pretty good at Lone Druid." Next thing you know, he's getting signed by Alliance, right? And then
And
winning the international shortly after. So it's
I
it
think a
might it
level two is
go ahead.
like is boot camping. Like I don't even know how boot camping personally works, but I do know that that's a great opportunity to increase your level of skill.
Oh
Seems to
yeah.
be when a boot camp occurs, or I don't know if someone has to organize that separately, or how a boot camp especially happens.
Right. But
Um,
that environment that fosters growth and development.
and a boot camp is actually, if is what it is, basically when teams get together, like serious teams get together and play continuously for an X amount of period. If am I not correct?
Pretty much. I mean, usually it's with some goal or objective in mind. They don't just like, what, let's just do it. Like, let's just get together. It's more like internationals coming up or something like world championships coming up, whatever, in like, 3 months. Time to like, buckle down, really get our strategies nailed out, get our team coordination on point, shave like that point 0.1, point 0.2 seconds off our executions, like
So
really.
that's like a high level training exercise. Like if you're gonna when you're boot camping for like you're serious about fixing performance as a team. You're
Honestly, like don't get me wrong, boot camping is just a very professional form of landing. Like if you have like a group of friends and you just land together, I mean, in essence, you're boot camping. It's just when you're doing it as part of a professional team, there has to be a goal or a strategy in mind, right? You're not just doing it for the hell of it. Um, Although I will say there's the results are often very similar in both cases. Like I've just land with a bunch of my friends for the weekend, and our level of play and performance over that time is like drastically improved um, compared to playing online, and that's just by virtue of the environment fostering learning and coordination and improvement. Um, a lot of the things that get lost online, um, you pick up on when you're in person and playing, with those people right beside you. It's much easier to communicate and to understand each other, and to perform better as a result of that. So boot camping can be a very easy and effective way of improving your skill if you have that opportunity available to you.
and I think that really is a key thing that we can really hammer home is that LAN is sort of that next level in growing your skill. Like first is online, You kind of get a feel for it, and then the next level, the next step, is to some sort of land, whether it's competitively or for practice. Like
Well,
I feel it,
that's
that's the
if you
next
need
step.
if it needs driving home anymore. I mean, I don't know of any world championships that are played online. I mean, that's that's just the reality of it. If you want to be the top of your game, you have to be comfortable playing at LAN. You have to. Stakes are higher. People are performing better. Everybody's firing on all cylinders. It's a lot of adrenaline and a lot of energy. A lot of hype, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of nerves, and you have to be as a professional player. You have to be ready to deal with that. And when I say as a professional player, I know we're talking to amateurs, but like if you even if you want to be an amateur, if you want to take it to the next level, you gotta
You
think
have to prep
with
yourself. Like you have to that
you have to think
mindset,
in a
right?
professional mindset. Exactly. You
Yeah.
can't continuously think of yourself as an amateur. If you do, you're just holding yourself back. I mean, you're setting yourself up to be an amateur if you're thinking like an amateur, and that's really what it is. Like,
So a question in the chat was, do boot camps in MOBA change meta drastically, like in some other esports? And I guess that might even be he means more like the land factor.
actually,
Um,
I'd say so. Yeah, absolutely. Both in terms of like when teams are boot camping, you get like new ideas that'll come to the table that they haven't done before. Random strategies like we saw Alliance come up with Lifestealer infesting Ancients as a strategy. It wasn't too successful, but again, these kind of experimentation and ideas do come out of these teams playing together in tight quarters for long periods of time, and it's kind of like a think tank, if you will. Um, but especially in Dota, I'd say lands and boot camps give rise to new meta all the time. Especially the lands. You'll see every land, every international, they all develop their own little kind of unique meta. Like we saw at ESL that just passed, everybody was picking Bone Clinks and Broodmother. And after the land, it just kind of fell off because after the land, people went back to boot camping, thought about it a little bit, figured out how to counter these heroes, and stopped picking them. Um,
oh, the
now,
brood mother.
now the same thing's kind of happening for Alchemist, right? Everybody like in the last little while preparing for the international, everybody's been picking Alchemist. This was kind of like the hot pick, the hot strategy coming out of the in-house leagues, coming out of the boot camps, and very quickly people learned how to counter it, and now it's gonna die down. So I mean, um, ultimately, what I'm getting at is that lands boot camps they kind of
Lands
they
change things.
yeah, they kind of I wouldn't say they change it, they just accelerate it because these are like natural progressions. This I feel like these meta shifts would happen either way. It's just that when people are landing or playing at a big LAN or everybody's boot camping,
Hmm.
these things tend to evolve much faster, right?
Oh, there you go.
And that's
Evolve
and
much
that's
faster. I didn't even think of it like that.
yeah, it's just like, you know what? I'm sure that people would have gotten around to figuring out how to counter Broodmother and Clinks anyway, but because everybody's on LAN and everybody's scrimming and everybody's, boot camping before or after, these things get figured out much faster because you've got 5 players in the same room all sharing ideas, all sharing strategies, and all sharing their thoughts and opinions and reflections on it, which basically just leads to faster progression of the same line of thought. Um, 5 heads greater than one kind of thing.
So I think that's a great start, and I think hopefully a lot of people can pick some information from that. Um, I want to move on to our second topic for the night. Is and this came spawned from an article that I read recently regarding esports organizations popping up in universities. So people organizing esports events or esports clubs or whatever have you. And I figured we might have some people in the audience who are thinking about starting up some sort of esports club or running their own event or doing some of that. And I figured we do events, we organize some events, and I figured we could
We do that, don't we?
we do. So I think it would be a great idea. I thought it would be a great idea for us to share some of that knowledge on what it takes to put on an event for players, amateur level or otherwise,
Hmm.
um, and some of the pitfalls that we've run into. And I thought it would be an awesome thing to share that knowledge with people.
Okay.
So
Well, let's. I think best place to start is. I mean, I don't want to start with passion or the dream or anything like that.
the passion.
Everybody's got that in spades, right? But I'd like to start with pitfalls actually because that's where I feel like we could impart the most to our viewers. Like anybody who's
Absolutely.
actually considering this, if I could save you a sleepless night, then I've done my job here. Um, Pitfalls. Number one pitfall I have to say is always equipment. Always equipment. The one thing that I've encountered more than anything else is technical difficulties, and usually they're due to negligence or incompetence. Um, and when I say usually, I mean 99% of the time. Very rarely is it something absolutely random that you had no control over, like Valve pushed an update or something bizarre like that happens. Like uh, that's pretty much like the only like one factor that is completely like unforeseeable when it comes to technical difficulties. Most of the time, and make no mistake, this happens at Star Ladder, this happens at ESL, this happens even at the biggest lands you can imagine. Um, the biggest pitfall is people not testing the equipment, just not. And when I say testing the equipment, I don't mean like okay, computer turns on, great. Steam is installed, great. Graphic drivers are installed, great. That's not what I mean by testing the equipment. The amount of times that I could say that nobody turned on a computer and played a game on the machine that they expect the players to use for competitive matches is like I'm sure it's an abysmal percentage that we'd all be horrified with if anybody did an actual like study on this or analysis of it. But even at like ESL, go read Eternal Envy's blog about it. He's commented multiple times like people have set up the stations for the players to use, and there's no way that anybody played a match on those computers, because if they did, they would have realized that the computers are entirely unusable. Um, and this happens at the biggest events, it happens at the smallest events, and you do not want it to happen at your event. That's for sure.
So equipment is one pitfall. Another thing I would always suggest is internet. Internet is one of those things that is super tricky, especially when it comes to venues. It's just one of these things that I cannot stress enough. More bandwidth is better than not enough bandwidth. Like you have to choose your venue specifically. Like if you're streaming, or if your tournament is primarily require an online connection, consistent online connection.
Mhm.
Um, Take bandwidth into consideration. If you yourself are not technical savvy, find somebody who is and bring him aboard. Um, and bandwidth cannot be underestimated about, especially for your venue.
Yeah, that's another one of those things. Test it, test it, test it. Even if they tell you like, yeah, we got, you know, 100 megs down, 100 megs up, 15 million down, whatever, like just test it for your own sake, not for anything but saving yourself the nightmare and the headache. Just test it. That's the best advice I can give you on that. And internet and power, honestly.
Oh, power! Oh my goodness.
Power has the same issue as internet. They'll say like, "Oh yeah, we've run plenty of events here before. We've done bigger, better, faster, stronger, whatever." And you get there, and your power's dropping, or the panel is smoking, or
Honestly, a dry run. Like I think if you like, you have to. If you are an organizer, and you should insist, like you should practically make it mandatory if you can, obviously. But if be do
yeah,
your due diligence to make it mandatory to let the venue allow you to get an opportunity to either do a dry run of your event, to do a test day of the venue, like to be able to put the computers or whatever it is and run them at maximum, just to test things like power and internet. If you
yeah,
don't, I recommend checking to see if anyone else has run anything at the venue.
yeah,
Ask them, what
yes.
their experience was, if they had any problems.
Do
Was
your
there
research.
Do your research? Absolutely. These are things that if you're deciding to start up an event, any kind of event, dude, this applies to if you're doing a bar craft or a pub stomp or any of these things. This is just plain esports organization 101. Do your research about the venue, because
Well,
venues
actually,
want you ultimately to use their venue, so they'll tell you what you want to hear to use that venue.
yeah. Actually, the one thing that I was gonna say is, perhaps more applicable to the amateur event running scene and such. If you are part of a college, university, and you're looking to run an event, chances are you're using your university or facility computer lab, which I mean, I wouldn't doubt their power capabilities. I'm not saying you need to turn on every computer in the lab and make sure that they don't all crash because you've used too much power or anything like that. Like there's certain things that you can um, you can know are safe because you've experienced them, you've been there before and such. But like you do need to test the things that are going to be affecting your event. So if you are using a computer lab at the school, for example, how does the network react when you run
Oh my
100
gosh.
copies of CS:GO, right? Like how does your network at school, because of crazy firewalls or MAC addressing or whatever,
Oh my
interact with
goodness.
spectators jumping into HLTV, jumping into Dota TV, like assuming you're broadcasting your event, how does your network at school handle Twitch ports? Like how much upload are you able to put out to Twitch as part of your school's network? Like
That's something that's really big because what you will think is you'll say, "Oh, I'll do a speed test," and it says I have 500 down and 1,000 up or something crazy. But
wrong,
usually those are managed
wrong.
by it's like those are managed
Yeah,
by your school's network, which
yeah,
means sure you can get 1,000 down, 1,000 up on your test, but
yep,
your school's not going to give you that. Like
exactly.
that's going to be throttled. And this obviously this varies to school, but
Yeah,
normally some university or college will have
and
something in place.
not just schools either. We're talking libraries, land centers, and like
Absolutely.
anywhere you go where you didn't like physically install the network yourself, you could run into this. So again, test it again, play a game on it, get your friends together. Once all the equipment's set up, do a little dry run. Like, I mean,
Now,
it'll just save you so much headache and hassle when the time comes for the actual event. Um, and you know what? If you never experience the woes of technical difficulties, uh,
they're
just
crazy stressful.
just thank your lucky stars. Honestly, like it's
If it was to give you some, if I was to say some advice though, for even if you can't get in the day before or a couple days earlier, then you have to schedule extra hours to come in, even on top of your setup.
mhm.
So that's always make sure there's enough time to test. Give yourself enough time for things to go wrong. Key people being late or stuck in traffic, or players, or not even really players, because players need
Well,
to
this
have that's a completely
we're
different sort of
no, this
situation.
this is actually a very important next topic: scheduling.
Ooh,
Scheduling, as far as like pro tips that we can give when trying to plan your event. Other than technical difficulties, one of the next biggest issues you're gonna run into is scheduling. You can never schedule bad traffic, weather effects. You can never schedule power outs. You can never schedule like ISP provider drops.
oh,
You can't schedule for those things. The best thing you can do is give yourself enough leeway, give yourself enough cushion. If you want the games to start at 11, schedule the players to be there for 9:30. Honestly, like they're gonna want time to get all their gear set up. They're gonna want time to download their Steel Series drivers and their Razer Synapse and configure their mouse and test their keyboards and play a quick match and just get all their settings just right and download their configs. And oh, this isn't working and that isn't working, and my USB headset doesn't work on this computer, and
oh my goodness,
blah
those
blah.
those trivial little things that eat up little bits of time, and they just
Schedule ample extra time for these things to happen. I know sometimes you feel like it comes at the cost of quality of the event. Like, for example, you're thinking to yourself, well, the only way that I'm going to fit everything into one day if I'm scheduling all this extra time is if I do like single elimination. Honestly, this is your first event. You don't have the resources to run 2 days or something like that. Do the single elimination, do the best of ones, do those kinds of things, because ultimately, if the opposite is true, if the inverse is true, where players are stalled up, they're trying to get their equipment set up, things aren't going right, and you end up going super late and you can't finish things, you're going to regret it far more than having lost a couple of matches or reduced the overall effectiveness of the tournament by making it a best of one or a single elimination or something like that. um, their experience will be worse if they don't get to finish the event, or if they have to stay like till 2 a.m. or something like that when they were only planning on being there till 10 p.m. Um, so it's better to err on the side of caution in this case
I
than
agree.
to take the risk and go big, go just and just play reckless with other people's time. And
I absolutely agree that if you have to change the format, make sure the format works to the timing, and you know that's it. That's it. You have to just make if you can't do a double elimination
yeah,
because of it, then
yeah.
single elimination.
What yeah,
Um,
what I've personally come to realize is that format is a function of time and resources.
hmm
Usually those things are related. If you have more time, it's because you have more resources, true, but at the same time, like I said, if you don't have the time, you don't have the resources, the first thing that needs to get changed is your format. And that's, it's the professional thing to do, and it'll be good for you in the long run, because the last thing people want is to come to an event, have a horrible experience, and that's the last thing you want, technically, I should say, because they're not coming back. Like, next
No,
time you
no,
try it,
no.
they're like, "Oh, last time we went, it was awful. We couldn't get to play. Like, what we did get to play was terrible, and we couldn't finish. We had to come back the next day or finish online, or, our best of 5 at the end got cut down to a best of 3 with a 1 game advantage, and it was totally unfair." Like, setting these expectations.
Nothing makes you more salty than like having to stay till 2 a.m. when you plan to stay at 10 p.m. as a
or
player.
or
I would.
or just getting your expectations cut short. If you're going
Mm-hmm.
into it, feeling like, okay, this grand finals is a best of 5, no game, no advantage, and then it ends up being like a best of 3, and you're like, you know what, I was expecting it to be a best of 5. Had I known, I would have played it differently. But you know what, it's always going to be the losers that's complaining. But guess what, the loser is the person that wants to come back and win next time. So you got to make sure that they're taken care of too. Everybody's important when you're running these events. It doesn't matter if they got eliminated first round or they won the whole thing. They have to have an equally good experience, at least from you as an organizer. Sure, they're going to be salty they didn't win, but they're going to be motivated to come back and win the next time. And you got to make sure that you take care of them, and you don't give them false expectations and say, like, yeah, it's double elimination, and then, like, sorry, we just don't have the time to play out the matches. It's single elimination halfway through. Or, sorry, we just don't have the time to play out the matches. It's best of 3 with a 1 game advantage now, so you're 1 game away from losing the grand finals. It's
I think nothing's worse than that. But I think even if I was to take a step further, I would say, or even not a step further, I would say if the next step to ensuring that happens or that you run on time is you need to be strict, or at least you have to be stern on your bracket management.
yeah, be
Uh,
firm, but that comes down to scheduling. Schedule
Absolutely.
according. Yeah.
But there'll be things where, for example, players will walk away for lunch and without telling you, and it's these things where you have to make sure it's in your rules first of all. Letting the players know that if they are not at their position or they're not when they have a certain amount of time, that if they're not at the PlayStation, you have to disqualify them, and you have to let them know that the reason for that is to ensure the quality and the integrity of the event, and that's to ensure that the event runs, you
Yeah.
know,
In
to
a timely way.
expectations in time, right?
Yeah.
So, and these will happen, especially at amateur levels. I don't know how this affects even on a mid tier to pro tier, but especially amateur levels, players will walk away. They will go for food. And if your tournament has a lax atmosphere, you may not see those players for a while. They'll go to the local McDonald's, the local Denny's, and
They're
you
holding up
know,
your whole bracket.
and your whole bracket is contingent on this, and that leaves you as an organizer in a position where you have to say to yourself, do I disqualify them, or do I go search for them, or
Well, one
you
thing
know,
I will tell you is you're gonna feel a whole lot better about disqualifying them if you told them that they're up to be
yes,
disqualified because they're not at their station or because they're gonna be late. Bracket management and effective tournament admins are invaluable to your tournament lifeline. Like, they will sink your ship as quickly as they will navigate it to a great success. Make sure that they know what they're doing. They're doing their job. They're comfortable with the brackets, and that you've equipped the players, because no player is gonna do this out of malicious intent. They're not gonna like be like, yeah, we're supposed to be here, but we really don't care. Like, they're not. They're nobody's gonna say that. What they
no,
will
that's
say
true.
is, you didn't tell us. Nobody told us. We
That's
didn't
true.
know, right? And you don't want that. You don't want that on your shoulders. Like, you don't want
So
somebody who paid $175 or something for a team ticket to attend your LAN, uh, saying that it's your fault that they're disqualified. That's the worst thing for your reputation and your longevity.
and what that means is what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that it's so quick, like crystal clear communicated that this is how it's done, or this is the situation, or these are the rules of the event or the organize, and make it accessible. Don't hide it under
Oh no.
fine print. It should be a few clicks away for anybody, for you to reference for your own safety, like in your event, and for the players um ability to be able to have, like Tamir said, that control um, of their own destiny in an event, right? So they need to be aware of the rules and have easy access to these kind of things. Which
Absolutely.
I think this brings up a really very interesting point. Staffing, Tamir, how would you handle staffing when it comes to an event?
Um,
Acquiring staff, I guess.
if you're specifically talking about where do I find staff, honestly, your local community is your most valuable asset. There's a lot of people that love tournaments but don't have teams, their team can't participate, etc., etc. They would love to be a part of your event. Most of them will just volunteer. They just want to be involved. They know it's a cool day. They get to attend the LAN for free. All this kind of cool stuff. They get a cool shirt if you're providing that kind of stuff. People want to participate. They want to be there. They want to be a part of the action, and you can find them just they're as far as your fingertips. They're the people posting on your Facebook groups. They're the people. Don't be afraid to ask for volunteers. Just make a quick submission form, right? A quick
Now, would you
Google
suggest them
form
to
or
take
whatever.
anyone?
Okay, well that depends on beggars can't be choosers. I'm not gonna tell anybody be picky when they really can't afford it, right? They're running like some Clash of Clans tournament, and there's just there's two volunteers. If you can't be picky, don't be. But I mean, I would highly recommend that you spend a little bit of time talking to the people. Just speak with them. The people who are interested in volunteering for your event, just have a quick chat with them. Figure out who they are, what kind of experience they have. Do they know what they're talking about? Do you feel comfortable with putting your name in their hands? Because if you don't, I would highly recommend you don't do it.
And for some
But
of the events that we've done, we treat it very much like a job position where you will like you'll do interviews and you'll try to get experience, and because the quality of your event does kind of hinge on the type of people who are part of your event organization or who are volunteering.
it's the quality
They
of your event is nothing but the sum of the people that are organizing it. Like, make no mistake.
like it makes that all of that difference.
You can have a
Um,
huge prize pool. Gaming Paradise is a great example. It doesn't matter. Like, if it's organized poorly, if it's not well thought out, not well planned, not well scheduled, not thoroughly tested, not well researched, not well organized, it's gonna be crap. Like, it's it's just the nature of the beast. Like, it's not rocket science. You can't make chicken soup out of chicken shit. Like, if if if
what?
if if what you're recruiting is chicken shit, then you're not. So,
Okay,
so
so what other pitfalls would you put people who are looking to organize? Is there any other pitfalls you would suggest specifically to me for people to watch out for when they're putting together their collegiate league or their um, event for the first time? Or
absolutely get everything in writing first of all. Horror
ooh,
stories about um, sponsors pulling out after the
oh
fact.
gosh,
What was that recent one that comes to mind? It just happened.
that Red Bull one.
No, it was like Epic Gaming or something like that. It's called Epic Gaming League or something like that.
Oh, EGL,
Yeah,
Epic Gaming League. Yeah,
their sponsors pulled out at the last second. People message Epic Gaming Lounge. That's what it is.
Epic Gaming Lounge.
Their sponsors, quote unquote, pulled out at the last second. They basically made off with $40,000 in prize money. So, I shouldn't say made off with, but they vanished with $40,000 in prize money owing. Um, get everything in writing, people. If a sponsor wants to sponsor your event, don't let them just walk in the front door and be like, "Yeah, we'll sponsor this thing. Great, take your word for it. We're doing it." Like, you
And
need.
that actually is it's funny that you brought that one up too. That there's so many horror stories of sponsors and of promises that were just vanish in midair. And I think Epic Gaming Lounge is one, and then I guess there was actually a Red Bull event with Smash Brothers where
Oh
some
yeah, that's
guy who
yeah,
pretended to be a Red Bull
yep,
employee came in and
and
promised players on the spot money, and you're like.
yep, $10,000 all of a sudden, and the event organizers just kind of went along with it. I wasn't there, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. All I know is if somebody walked into my event and was like, "Hey, can I have a microphone?" I would not say sure. Uh,
So I think that what this really turns into is really putting that focus on the integrity of your event. So sponsors is a totally different beast. And if I was to give some, and
no,
this
not
is
just sponsors, like venue. vendors,
Venue,
everything,
vendors,
everything.
everything,
Even if it's
everything.
just an even if it's just an email, even if it's just an email, get it in writing, people. Like if you can get invoices and contracts and agreements, even better. But just don't settle for like a face to face, yeah, sure,
Handshake, cell
firm
phone,
handshake.
text.
Like just get it in writing. Make it and the reason to get it in writing is not because I expect you to pursue anybody who goes back on it legally. The reason to get it in writing is because everything is clearer in writing. What you put down on paper, is not ambiguous, or if it is ambiguous, it's not left to interpretation. You'll realize like, hey, this isn't quite clear. I'm reading it, and or I'm letting my colleague read it, or my friend read it, or my hamster read it, and they can't quite understand what this means. Could you clarify? And that's really the reason to do it, is so that everybody's intentions are made obvious, and so that when it comes time to make good on those arrangements, right, you know exactly what you're in for. It's in writing, right?
I think that's so important. Like the clarity of who's responsible for what is that person responsible for, and and who, so that when the day of the event comes, people aren't just like shrugging their shoulders. No, 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 no. You're responsible for cleaning up the venue,
Yeah. Where does
right?
it say that?
Where does it say that? Where does it say that I'm responsible for cleaning up the venue,
Right.
right? For so those things are like, and this comes down to relationship building, because I cannot tell you how many times this is now. I've made this mistake many times where took someone's word on it. It's like, oh, okay, and at the end of the day, they come back and they're like, look, so and so, or they say something like, uh, you know, this is how much I'm owed for this. I was like, wait, that's not what was agreed upon. We didn't say that, or
Yep.
um, no
That
one likes surprises. I'll tell
that
you from
wasn't
now.
that wasn't in the invoice.
That wasn't
Like,
in the invoice. That wasn't in the initial discussions. And it's really good to have emails to reference too. If you had emails, you're like, look, this is the emails we said. You know,
yep,
there's nowhere where it says this in the email that
or better paper.
I.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like it's and like I said, it's for your protection, and it's for the other person's protection, that you get some
It's
sort of things in, you know, get some
clarity, peace
clarity.
of mind, and like I said, it's not because I expect you to hire a lawyer for $30,000 and go after this vendor that was responsible for the lighting in the VIP lounge of your event for $2,000. Like, that's not what we're implying. We're just
No,
implying that everybody has clear and defined roles, and that those roles are clear and defined in writing, so that they're easily referenced and reflected upon, and clarified as a result of that. So make sure that you're not just talking. Make sure that you're getting things, and it's not a bad thing. Even if you're just working with like somebody who's a caster, he's just coming to cast your event and he's doing it for $100. Ask them for an invoice. It's super easy. There's online invoice creators. All they have to do is go on Google, be like invoice form, and there's plenty of ways that they can generate an invoice online and just email it off to you. It's super simple. And if everything has a line item, and they'll say like, it's the line item, I'm casting Dota. That doesn't, if I'm casting Dota, that means that all I'm responsible for is the casting. I'm not responsible for cleaning the washrooms, not responsible for making sure that the players are happy, not responsible for bringing a computer, anything like that, right? Just there, as long as there's, it's written somewhere what everybody's responsible. The
yeah, and it sets
only
the
other tip I can give
expectations.
is, yeah, it's just an easy way of making things not vague and not confusing, and it's important that you do it.
And I think this is, if I can impart any one last piece of knowledge, I think this is something that people really ask me a lot, like on the side. Like I actually get this message, this kind of question on Facebook quite a bit. It's about sponsors and sponsorship. There are two things I want to put a point on in sponsorships, and you have to realize sponsorship is a service that you're providing. So when you're providing a sponsorship, um, you are providing a service, and that service is you are exchanging your audience in exchange for financial compensation. So
It's marketing,
it's marketing. It's a business transaction, and I want you
advertising
to like
space.
I cannot tell you so much more that it's a business transaction. It's not, this person is coming here to, you know
They're not trying to
save your
fulfill your dreams. They're not.
fulfill your dreams. That they're not here to save your, make your dreams come true, or take you to the promised land. Like they're here because there is a there's a something for them to gain. Like,
Mhm.
as a business, they
Just
will gain
advertising,
something.
advertising
Well,
space.
advertising. So sponsorship, and that's gonna be the next part. So advertising is a portion of it, but sponsorship itself is a little bit further than advertising. Advertising is something like Google ads or Facebook ads or something. That's where you interrupt somebody specifically to get that thing. Don't get me wrong. There's advertising involved in a sponsorship, but a sponsorship is a whole lot more. And I can totally do an episode one day about sponsorship. But the concept of sponsorship is it's building awareness, and they're using you as a conduit to fulfill the conversation with your audience. Your audience being either players or actual spectators, or a combination of the two, depending on the nature of your event. And your event is the vehicle or the conduit. Like they really don't care about you specifically and your heartfelt sadness. It's
Oh, we
about
hope they do, but they probably
well,
don't.
oh, like they're as far as human interaction goes, the person you're dealing with probably has some gain in terms of like they like you or they wouldn't have signed a sponsorship. But ultimately, that business itself like is invested in your future because it helps their future, like, which is ultimately what it is. And you have to treat it as a business transaction when you approach someone for a sponsorship for your event or for your for your event or for whatever's happening. Treat it like a business transaction and not like it's a charity. I cannot emphasize it. It's a sponsorship is not a charity. You don't try to guilt a sponsor into giving you money. Like I've seen it
You
happen before.
Yeah, you have to know what you have to offer them. If you don't have anything to offer them, don't bother asking them for money.
Absolutely, it's honestly you have, and the better you know your event, the more you can tailor what you have to offer. It comes down to, you know, this is my event. This is what makes my event special. This is the people you want to talk to. Use my event as a vehicle to do that, and then you make a transaction based on that.
Mhm.
Um, and if I was to give you one tip without turning this into a huge sponsorship discussion, tailor your sponsorship pitch to the sponsor. I like I know you're just starting out and you're trying to figure it out and you probably don't know how to put together a sponsorship pitch, but if anything I can tell you, like honestly, uh take that sponsorship pitch, if it's a deck, if it's an email, it doesn't matter, just don't copy pasta. Don't copy pasta the same thing to each sponsor and blast out an email. Honestly, just choose a few key sponsors that you really think would work with your event and pitch them your event in a way that is specific to their needs, right? If it's a chair sponsor, like DX Racer, or what's the other one?
Cheers for gaming.
No, that's a retailer. There's DX Racer and Need for
Oh,
Seat.
Maxnomic.
Need
Oh,
Maxonomic, Need for Seat, DX Racer. A sponsorship pitch for them will look different than, say, a sponsorship pitch to, maybe
Electronic,
Razer or
Sennheiser,
Plantronics or Sennheiser because they're in a different category.
Tostinos,
Tostitos,
or
like, so definitely Tostitos.
Soylent, or any,
These
any one of these.
sponsors.
Any one of these
Um,
potential sponsors. I mean, the number of potential sponsors out there is effectively limitless. If you can think of a company that has a product, they are a potential sponsor. And that's just because they have a marketing budget, which is that's what they're looking for,
and
right? They're
absolutely,
looking to
and
market something, and you're offering them a venue, or sorry, I shouldn't say a venue, an avenue to do that.
a vehicle.
Yes, a way of transporting their message and showcasing what they have to offer.
and
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 it,
build
it
association with you, which is what
yes.
ultimately what they want is to build an association with you.
Mhm.
So,
And you're not
um,
you're not going to do that. Like, for example, if you're running a Dota event that's played on PC, Mad Cat's probably not the most likely sponsor for your event. Just
well,
just as
they have a
just as a
PC
thought.
line, but yes, Mad Catz for
Like I
their
said, not
arcade
not
sticks.
not the most likely sponsor for your event. Like, that's all I'm trying to say. Like, it could happen. Absolutely, they
Absolutely.
have things to offer. They could absolutely get involved. But like, all I'm really trying to say is, it has to have some, like, I shouldn't say it has to have some. It has to have a strong connection that you can build, or that you can show, in order for the sponsor to be interested.
Absolutely. There should be a strong line of connection. And if I was to give one last tip on this, I would say research that sponsor and find out what they've done in the past and
Mhm.
who they've already sponsored. So that will give you a good indication of A, if they're interested in even sponsoring, period. Because it's a lot easier to sell someone who's already done sponsorship in the past.
Mhm.
And B, how they've used those sponsorships with their brand. You can get so much good ideas in by looking at how they've already done it. And you can just position yourself as another avenue or a different avenue, reaching a different type of audience uh, by using similar methods they've done. So,
Yep.
so we'll get close to wrapping it up, but let's do a quick overview. Tamir, do you have any last thoughts on being an amateur player?
Um, Honestly, focus on improving and focusing on getting in the spotlight are your two top priorities. Um, like I said, ways to do that are play with people that are better than you and play in areas where you can get noticed. I mean, it sounds obvious, but a lot of the times people take those things for granted. Like playing in areas where you'll get noticed doesn't mean playing ranked games or streaming what you're doing. It means actually like playing in tournaments, events, standing in for teams, playing in in-house leagues, um, those kind of things where you'll get noticed. So, like I said, just don't take those things too lightly. It's a conscious effort that you have to put forth.
If I was to give my last thoughts on being an amateur, I would say, you know, a lot of it comes down to um, even promoting yourself and what you're doing in terms of going forward. So trying to pitch into getting into different teams and making sure that there's a level of professionalism even for your brand. I don't even think I brought that up, but I think that's something that I didn't mention, but you should be mindful of just your even outside of your game, sort of your image moving forward. So that's something that's a play, even an amateur player should be mindful of, including your mindset. So even though you're an amateur player, adopting the mindset of a professional player from the get go is something that I think is really important when you're up and coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So final thoughts, Tamir, on event organizing.
Test everything. Test everything and do your research. The reality of running an event is you can only control things up until the day of the event. You can't change things afterwards. Once it's already in motion, once it's already happening, regretting not doing something is the worst thing that you'll ever experience. So make sure that you do everything you possibly can beforehand, no matter how tired or stressed out or drained or whatever the case, what you need to stay up till 5 a.m. Just do it. Get it done because once it's D-Day, once it's event time, you don't have that option anymore, and you don't want to regret that.
My final thoughts would be give yourself enough time. That whether it's advertising, promotion, organizing, brackets, players, staff, give yourself enough time. Like I cannot you cannot underestimate how much better you'll feel when you know you have enough time to execute an event. So,
Yep.
so I think that pretty much covers it. This was a different type of episode. Next week, Bear will be back, and hopefully, we will have.
He will.
Uh, well, we assume he'll be back.
I thought we finally got rid of him.
Ah, I hope he knows. That's it.
Done.
Cut. Done. That's it.
You're
You
done.
you left.
Hear
It's
that?
done.
You hear that, Bear?
Um,
You're done.
it's like it's finally over.
Don't need any more
Right.
of his Hearthstone shenanigans on here.
Finally, his Hearthstone and rap. I thought we'd never get rid of it.
Never.
Oh. Um, but that's it. Hopefully, be back if you want to. If you want to get back to find us on. If you want to find us, where can you find it, Tamir? Tell them. Where can they find you? Sorry,
You
I
can
read
you
it.
can find me on Twitter at Strygwyrd. That's STRYGWYRD. I'm sure it's on the stream or whatever, somewhere down there on the screen. You can find it. Um, Drekkonis here. You can find him on Twitter as well at Drekkonis.
Oh, why? Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You seem to be struggling there. I just jumped right
Oh.
in. So I figured I'd take care of it. At Drekkonis, Drekkonis, and Yeah, otherwise follow us here at ESChamp. If you like what we do on the Aniki, you want to hear more, you have topic ideas, suggestions, questions, throw it all at us. We love hearing from you guys. Any concluding thoughts here?
No, actually, that was a fantastic outro. ESChamp on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Follow all those things. Instagram, ESChamp GG.
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud and iTunes. Follow,
And
subscribe.
iTunes.
And iTunes. Oh my god, we got accepted. We've made it. We've made it, Reddit.
That's it. We're big on
We
iTunes.
did it. We did it. So guys, until the next time, keep looking for the Aniki.
And it's a shame now to say good.